suddenly floating in this dark, vast space. It was silent. It was completely silent. I felt like a pair of eyes just floating. And when you hear the word dark, you think scary. And it wasn't scary. I was absorbing all this information. And what I remember thinking, oh, so this is what it's really all about. So this is how it works. And I remember when I understood that, I had this feeling of, I want to get back. I know how it works.
Still have questions after watching these videos? Perfect. Come hang out with me on Wake Up Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern, where we will answer your questions live. And you never know what surprise guests might show up. Thank you for watching. My guest today is Karin McLean, who had an NDE that took her years to fully remember. And she's going to share it today, along with an intriguing OBE and an experience that she had with her brother who passed away in the same accident that she was in. So, Karin, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, I know that you have several parts of your experience that are going to really help people who've experienced a loss that are watching. So I'm excited for you to share it. So let's go back to the accident that started all of this for you in 1991, and I'll let you share it in any way that makes sense for you.
Perfect. Well, in 1991, I was 18 years old. I'm the oldest of four, and I had just finished my first week of college. My family and I decided to take a road trip. And during that road trip, my 16-year-old sister was driving, and we overcorrected. And those of us in the back seats, me, my other sister, and my youngest brother, the youngest member of our family, my brother Brian, he was 9 years old, we were all ejected from the car. And that's when I had my NDE. I was suddenly floating in this dark, vast space. It was silent. It was completely silent. And looking back now, I believe I've done a lot of research on NDEs, and I believe that this was a holding space to kind of, I think I popped out of my body before I hit the ground as a way to seek relief from the pain that I was about to endure. And recently I've had a new insight on that. I, for years, I struggled that I was just floating in this dark space, and the other NDEs I have read about they usually see a light, they usually see loved ones, they usually see their body from above. And I was just floating in this dark place, and it was like being in outer space without any stars. I felt like a pair of eyes just floating. And when you hear the word dark, you think scary. And it wasn't scary. I also didn't feel the overwhelming joy everybody talks about. I just felt neutral. And I was absorbing all this information. And what I remember was thinking, oh, so this is what it's really all about. So this is how it works. And I remember when I understood that, I had this feeling of, I want to get back. I know how it works. You know, like when you're playing a game and you suddenly know how to win the game, you want to get in and win it. So that's what I that's my memory of being in this place, which other NDEers call this place the void. And just recently, my accident was in 1991. So that, as of today, that was 34 years ago. And just recently, I think about my NDE all the time. I think about the afterlife all the time. And I was thinking, about how people describe the tunnel, rushing through a tunnel, and I didn't have that. But the other day it occurred to me that if I were to have been rushing in that darkness, that could simulate a tunnel. So I thought that was pretty interesting that that thought came to me. And I know a lot of people in the tunnel, they see a pinprick of light that starts to get bigger because they're rushing towards it. And I never saw a pinprick of light. I never saw anything like that. But because my memory kind of came back to me gradually, I could have very well experienced that, and I don't remember that. I think I only brought back what I was supposed to remember. And so that was just kind of an interesting realization I had recently about the tunnel and the rushing. But I really believe I was just in that place to seek relief from hitting the ground with such brutal force. And
So, did
so
you, at any time when you were in that place, did you look down and see a body? Because you did describe yourself as almost being like eyes. Did it even feel like you had a body?
it really didn't. I feel like I was just floating in space. I wasn't aware. I know that, like, I held my identity because I did. I say I held my identity because I didn't feel like I was absorbing into something else or becoming one with something. So I felt like I was me, but I did not feel like I wasn't really aware of a body. And I just, the silence was amazing and it was peaceful. The silence was peaceful. It was just so quiet and it was so dark. And to this day, when I'm in bed at night, I close my eyes really tightly or put a sleep mask on and put the covers over me. I still cannot recreate how dark it was. It was so, so dark, yet so peaceful.
I've heard people call it the velvety void.
I've heard that too. Yeah. And maybe that's a good description for it because velvet is really dark. It's different than like when you think of a velvet dress, a velvet black dress, I mean, that is a black dress. When you think of a black t-shirt, might be not quite as dark. So, yeah, it does make sense. I haven't personally described it that way, but yeah, I just kind of say pitch black. It's just pitch
Hmm.
black with no stars. It's like floating in outer space.
Wow. You also mentioned the tunnel, and I loved the idea that a tunnel could be created by moving fast through that space. But you know what's funny, Karen? I feel like the more I've done ththese interviews, the more NDEs I've listened to, the fewer people actually have a tunnel experience. It seems less
Really?
common than common now, where when Raymond Moody did all of his studies back in the 70s, I feel like a lot of people describe the tunnel, and it doesn't seem like it works that same way as much anymore.
Oh, interesting. That's really interesting. Huh.
Yeah. So I know that this came back to you gradually over time. So when was the first time that you actually had the memory after you'd had the accident that this had happened?
It, like, again, it came back so gradually that there was no defining moment. It's like it just, but what did come first was like having this memory of, I remember thinking, wow, this is how it really is. And I remembered feeling that desire, like a strong desire to, now that I knew that I wanted to do it, to come back and play the game of life, knowing what I knew at the time. But so yeah, so I remembered that first, and I had to really dig deep and think, where was I when that memory came to me, or when I was thinking that? Where was I when I had those thoughts? And it was like, oh, and then it just clear as day, just like I was that pair of eyes again, just floating in darkness. And it just kind of came back. But there wasn't like a defining day where I was like, oh my heck, and called my family and told them what happened. It kind of just gradually came back, and it's hard to explain. And that's made it hard for me it's like difficult to think, was that real? How did that come back to me like that? It just made it hard. Because it would have been nice if it was like I was in bed one minute and the next minute this thing happened to me and then I woke up. It wasn't like that. And so that's made it kind of difficult to really absorb what actually happened.
That darn time that we have here on this side.
I know, right?
For sure. Oh, you mentioned a couple of times now the game and that you understood this is how it works. And I really can relate to you, Karin, because those were two very distinct knowings that I also had on the other side, was that it was a
Oh, wow.
game for the joy of the experience, and I mean joy of all experience, anything that we would label good or bad. And also every time coming back going, how could I have forgotten that it's this? Like, how were we veiled so
Yeah.
strongly that we could ever even forget that? So, will you share with us what you've come to understand about how you think this is a game and how this game works?
Yeah. Well, I believe that it's all about love and that we're here to experience the things that we can't experience on the other side. I believe the other side is bliss, happiness, love. And when you're sitting in that bliss, happiness, and love for an eternity, does it feel like bliss, happiness, and love anymore? Like, I think
Hmm.
we want to come down and experience some hardships so that we can come back and say it makes that happiness happy again because we've experienced the hardships, we've experienced hurt, we've experienced loss. On the other side, we're eternal beings, and we don't grow old, we don't die, we don't lose a child, a brother, all those things we can't even imagine. And I picture as eternal beings, wouldn't we want to be eventually become all-knowing beings? And if we want to become all-knowing beings, we want to come down and experience these things so that we can empathize with people and so that we can say, yeah, yeah, I've been that, I know that. And because of the storms I've been through, then I experience the bright days that much more. And so I really believe that we come to gain all of the experiences that we can't over there. And that makes it over there. Then when we're all on the other side, we're that much more happy and in bliss.
It was
And
interesting because you said that you didn't have those overwhelming emotional feelings that you connected to when you were in the void, but yet you said you know that on the other side, we are love. So, what happened in this experience and the integration that gave you the realization that there's just love on the other side?
well, a few months after I got home, after the accident, I had to live in a rehab for several months. And when I got home, a few months after I got home, I had an out of body, and that's where I felt those feelings.
Ah, well, let's hear about that. I'd love for you to share that one.
Yeah, so that one, I was asleep one night, and in the middle of the night, I woke up, and I woke up completely alert and wide-eyed, completely awake. I wasn't groggy, I wasn't checking the time, rubbing my eyes, and falling back to sleep. I was more awake and more happy than I ever had felt in my entire life and ever have to this day. My heart was literally burning with this sensation of love and joy and peace and just overwhelming happiness. And I felt so happy that, and I felt so, I had this urge to tell my family that I loved them. I felt so much love. I wanted to wake my mom and my sisters up and just say, I love you. I love you guys so much. And I really had to work hard to resist not waking up my family in the middle of the night. It was probably 3 a.m. if I had to guess. So everybody was sound asleep, and it actually took quite a while for me to settle down and fall back to sleep. But that feeling was just so overwhelming, and it shows me that it really is all about love. And I could have very well experienced that in the void, but possibly don't remember it. Or maybe it was just the holding space to just keep me cradled and safe, well, so I didn't have to experience that intense pain.
So, was there any incident that you had had leading up to that night of having the OBE or the days before that you think might have caused you to pop out of your body that way?
Not that I know of. It was, to me, it was just completely random. And the next morning, I told my mom about it, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you had, and you had an experience." And I was like, "Yeah, I did." And, I wasn't allowed to remember what happened in the out of body, but I was able to remember what it felt like. And that was amazing. And I do believe I had some type of experience with my brother since I had just lost him. And, but that feeling of love, I'll never forget that. That was incredible.
I love it. I love it when these are shared because this is the resounding common thread through out of body experiences and near death experiences of the love that we are on the other side. And I think in this day and age when there's so much that we can watch that shows that there isn't love in the world, these messages are so hopeful for people who need to remember that there is an extraordinary love beyond our comprehension that is really what we are. And when people connect to that, I think things start to change. What do you think?
Oh, I agree 100%. And I loved what you said earlier about remembering, like when you had your NDE and you're like, oh, why don't I remember this? That it's so simple, and this is what it's all about. And I really think we're here to, you know, part of that game is forgetting and coming down and working our way up to remembering. And
I 100% agree with you. Like that was the purpose of the game was to actually wake up and remember that it was the game.
yeah, yeah, it's like I can picture all of us on the other side saying, okay, let's wipe our memories. We're going to come down. We're going to experience these things. We're going to not remember who we are. We're going to have these hardships. And little by little, we're going to start remembering. And that waking up process is just so incredible. And once you start to remember, it's you you live your life differently. You lived
Yeah, I'd
your
like to hear about that because I know that you grew up in a very religious family. And I think I heard you say that you came back from this experience spiritual and not religious anymore. That's a pretty
yeah.
big change when you've been indoctrinated into a religion for, your entire life. So I'd love to learn a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah, sure. So, yeah, I did grow up religious. And when I was living in the rehab, my mom told me that they held church services there. So I was really excited. And I went into the meeting. And as I sat there, had to be in a wheelchair for 3 months. And I was just sitting there in my wheelchair, and something didn't feel right. Something that used to be inside of me felt like it was gone. And it hit me. The realization hit me that I almost died and I never really lived. I followed this path that was carved for me. I wanted to carve my own path. I came this close to death and I wanted to live. And so I also started thinking about, according to the church I was in, if, I had been such a rule follower that according to their beliefs, I would have ended up in a really good place and with my brother. And I thought, what if I hadn't followed such a straight path? Is the God that I believe in a God that would not let me be with my brother? No, no, this isn't the idea of God that I have. The idea of God, my idea completely changed to truly unconditional love and truly carving our own path, and not a God that's saying, if you do this and this and this, you can come back to me. But if you don't do these things, forget it. It's like a parent, especially now that I am a parent. It's like there is no reason on earth I'd ever not welcome my kids home with open arms. I mean, I don't care what they've done. I will always love them. And so my idea just started to change. And through the experiences that I eventually had with my brother, I I realized that I had never had any of these type of spiritual experiences when I was religious. And I just kind of, you do what you're told, and you follow what you're taught. And my religion kind of taught not to question either, just to listen to what maybe other people might have experienced, and to just stay in line. And I didn't want to do that. I came so close to death that I wanted to experience. I wanted to live.
Wow. Well, I want to learn about the experiences you had with your brother, but before we move to that, you said something that really made me think that there are a lot of people who are watching who are going to resonate with what you said, and that is that you realized that you had been following somebody else's path that had been carved for you and you wanted to do it yourself. Once you have that realization, I'm sure that there are a lot of people listening who are starting to wake up and realize the same. Where does somebody start when they wake up and realize, shoot, I'm on another path, it's not my own? What would you tell people? How would you help them to start the same journey that you started?
Well, I would say this is a great realization and such a great opportunity to start figuring out what you believe, and to kind of dig deep and say, what do I believe? Do I believe in a creator? If I do, what do I think he or she or it, whatever it is, what do I believe that why am I here? Why am I here? What do I believe that they want me, or not want me, but I don't know. It's a tough one, but you really got to just start digging into your beliefs and to why you think you're here and what's important to you. And really, for me, it comes down to the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. And, a lot of NDEs, they, a lot of experiencers come back having had a life review. And in those life reviews, they explain that they got to feel the way they made others feel, whether good or bad. And so I believe when you follow that and you go within your heart, you can start carving your own path and start finding, things that resonate you with, and watch YouTube videos on it. Learn more about whatever does resonate. And yeah, that's what I would suggest for people who need to start carving their own path. Really just go within and quit seeking outside. You have the answers within. We all do. And when you dig deep and go inside, you can find it. You can find your way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell me a little bit more about your brother. The only thing I think that you've said so far was he was 9 and he was in the back seat of that car and was ejected and killed in that car. So, What was your brother at that time, and what experiences let you know that he was still around and that he wasn't gone forever, even though he wasn't in your physical life anymore?
Yeah, well, his name was Brian, and he was so amazing. He was the cutest kid. He was good at every sport he tried. He was super athletic. He was just the cutest kid. And around that same time, I had that out of body experience. I, at that point, I had learned to walk again, and I was driving, and I suddenly felt his presence next to me in the car. And when when you feel, I had never felt a presence before, and it was surprising to me because suddenly there he is. There's I was like, "Oh, you still exist." Wow. And I just felt his energy there, and I talked to him. I talked out loud, and I told him how much I missed him and how grateful I was that he's my brother. And that changed everything to know that he was still there. And it was undeniable. It wasn't like, oh, do I think I imagine my brother next to me? You know, when someone enters a room, you can feel it. And I felt his energy. And it was cool to experience something like that because I had always been told that, you know, in my religion that we don't die, we continue on, and but you don't know that until you feel it. And it was like, I know my brother and I felt his presence. So that was really, really amazing to feel him there. So that was the very, very first experience I had feeling him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And I feel like you're so fortunate. I know that there are a lot of people who are watching and are like, I wish I could have an experience
Mm.
like that. And I know not everybody gets those types of experiences, but tell us some more things that let you know that he was around.
Yeah. Well, my mom, she got the first tangible sign. She was doodling on a piece of paper, talking on the phone to her brother, and out of nowhere, one drop of water landed on her paper. And she looked up, and the ceiling was fine. There wasn't a leak. She told her brother what happened, and he said, "Oh, you must need to get your roof replaced." And she said, "No, I had it replaced last year." That was Brian. That was Brian. And she just knew. And I came home that day and she told me what happened. And I was very skeptical. I said, "Oh, okay. How do you know that was Brian?" And she said, "I just know it was, that there was nothing else that it could have been. It was Brian." And I was supportive, but skeptical. And then it happened to me. That's when I became a believer. I was in my room alone. I was gluing a piece of artwork that had come undone, and one drop of water landed in the middle of my collage. And I couldn't wait to tell my mom that the same thing had happened to me. And that's the moment I became a believer in signs. And I had never heard about anyone experiencing a drop of water as a sign. But I've since had two family members experience it for themselves. I've had a listener on another podcast experience that as well and write into the host and say, "Hey, this is what happened to me," and I reflected back and to the podcast, and it's just been amazing. I even had a friend who lost her mom. After she lost her mom, she felt a drop of water on her arm as I was with her and we were getting into her car. And she said, "That's weird. A drop of water just landed on my arm and it's not raining." And immediately I thought, "That's your mom. That's a sign from your mom." And I told her about the experiences that I'd had, and her eyes filled with tears. And she was just like, "Oh, wow." And I can picture her mom working with my brother to deliver that sign. So
Right, the
just,
timing of it, the timing of it. I'm so
yeah.
glad you're sharing these, Karen, because I always say my signs confirm your signs confirm my signs. It's one thing to hear somebody's synchronicity, their sign, And to be able to like actually experience it, it does really, really change how you think about things. So, were there any other things that he's done besides the presence and the water?
Yeah, he's done so many. So one day I was driving, it was the day I found out I was pregnant. I was driving, listening to a compilation album that contains 200 songs. And I had it on shuffle on my iPod, and right in a row, two of his favorite songs came on right in a row. And I thought, oh, see, he must be, this could be Brian's way of congratulating me that I'm pregnant. And I was actually talking on the phone to my mom at the same time. And I told her what happened. And she said, oh, wouldn't it be so neat if Somewhere Out There came on? And I said, oh, that would be, but I don't have that song. And that song was sung at his funeral. And so we got off the phone. And then I said, Brian, it can be really I'm grateful that you've played those two songs, but it can be hard to believe that maybe that was just a coincidence. Maybe they just happened to come on back to back. I really want to know if that was you. If that was you, could you please play Somewhere Out There next? And so I turned off my iPod and I turned the radio on, and the ads were running. And then that song came on next. And I couldn't believe it. I called my mom and I turned the radio up and I said, listen, it's playing. I said, I asked for that song and he came through. And so he, that experience, it showed me that you don't just have to wait for signs, you can ask for them. So that's when I learned to ask. And something really cool that happened. I love sharing the signs I get from Brian and all my friends and family. They all know about the accident and they have encouraged me over the years, you should write a book. You should write a book. All these experiences are so neat. And that's a big endeavor to take. And it's like, no, no, I don't want to do that. That's too much. And eventually I started feeling Brian encouraging me to write a book. I could just feel him saying, write a book, you've got to do this. And it just kept coming to me. So right before I decided to dive in and actually write it, I asked Brian for a sign. And I said, Brian, can you give me your birth year, which is an 82? I said, give me an 82 if I'm supposed to write this book, if I'm meant to do this. And that night I went online to pay my credit card. And I was shocked when I saw my balance because it was 8282, a double 82. And so I knew I had to do it. So I started writing and then I published last May. And when the first sales report I got at the end of that month, I had sold 82 books. And so I know that was his thumbs up. You did it, sister. And the 8282 was, you can do this. You've got this. And so I know he was with me the whole way. And he hasn't just given me signs though. He's given my family signs and he'll play like there's a handful of songs that we refer to as Brian's songs and he'll play them on the anniversary of his death on his birthday. And we won't hear those songs any other time throughout the year. I mean, they're songs from 1991-ish area or time frame, that were popular when he was alive. And you just don't hear those, but we'll hear them right on his birthday. We'll hear them. My dad, he was visiting his father at the hospital, and he had to drive past the hospital where my brother was taken. And as he drove right in front of that hospital, one of Brian's songs came on right in that moment. And I've even had times where I've said, okay, like I've told my kids, I said, kids, tomorrow is Brian's birthday. I'm expecting one of his songs. And then we'll get in the car and on comes one of his songs on the radio. And so I learned all the different ways that he can communicate. He can communicate through music, through the drops of water, through electronics like TVs. I've gotten signs from him through the TV, and just so many ways, and numbers, with the 82. And I've experimented. Like one day I just said, Brian, it's been a bit. Can I get an 82 again? And the next time I went to the store, I bought my groceries and tucked my receipt in my pocket. When I got home that night, I pulled it out. $82 even after tax. So it's kind of turned into a fun game where I can ask them these things, and they show up. Even recently, I one of his songs was More Than Words. I don't know if you remember that
Of course I
song.
do. Yes.
Yeah, by the band Extreme. So I was driving home from the gym. It's like a 5-minute drive, and I was halfway home, and I just said, Brian, can you give me More Than Words? I want to hear that. And I didn't hear it. I got home. I usually, when I get home from the gym, I like to get in the shower and just get my day started. But for whatever reason, I just felt like I need to sit down and just look at my phone. And I pulled up social media, and a friend of mine shared a picture of her and her new boyfriend. And she said, This man, it's his birthday, and I'm so grateful he came into my life. And then there was like a new paragraph, and the only things written on the new paragraph were more than words. I'm like, oh, okay, there it is. So the way these things show up are pretty cool. And not only have I gotten signs from Brian, but I've tapped in and been able to get them from uh, uh, other loved ones who have died, like some ex-boyfriends. I've had signs from a couple ex-boyfriends of mine who've passed away, and it's just been really amazing. And it's amazing because it shows me, they're all still right here. They're just on a different frequency. And so that's been cool. But can I share one of my favorites
Oh, please
from an
do.
ex-boyfriend? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So one day, I was dealing with a health crisis this one several years ago. And I was home alone doing the dishes, and I felt a tap on the top of my head, like somebody had went like that, like pretty strong. And immediately I thought, was that a drop of water? Even though it felt a lot stronger than a drop of water. And it, it wasn't wet. And I turned around and I said, Who's here? Are you trying to I feel like somebody's here trying to tell me a message. And I just kind of looked around, and I didn't know what it was. So I turned back around and continued doing the dishes. And that was just a mystery to me until years later during the pandemic. Everybody was locked down and everybody was bored. And I thought, whatever happened to this ex-boyfriend of mine? Because he had threatened me at one point. And I thought, probably should. He moved out of state, but I thought I probably should like kind of keep tabs on where he is just to make sure he doesn't not back in my state. And so I looked him up, and what I found was it took me to Find a Grave website, and I saw a headstone with his name on it, and his name was pretty unique. And when I saw the birth date, I was like, oh, that was his birthday. So I did some more digging, and it turned out that, yeah, that was him. He had died. And the minute I realized that was him, I flashed back to that moment where I was tapped on the head, and I knew that was him that day. He had visited me to let me know he was around because he used to tap me on the head just like that. He he didn't like it when I used the word like, oh, I went to the store, and then I like, kind of like a valley girl. And he would say, I don't like it when you say that. So whenever you say that, I'm going to tap you on the head. Hence why was an ex-boyfriend. But once I found out he had passed, I flashed back, and that was exactly the way he would tap me on the head. Exactly. And I didn't put two and two together at the time because I figured he was alive. And so that was cool to realize that. And then I also had another experience. I had I had another ex-boyfriend. We had been broken up for 17 years. My family, I'm married now, and I have two kids. So my husband and kids and I went to Disneyland. We got there and went to bed that night. And that night I had a dream of that particular ex-boyfriend. And in that dream, we were standing in vast whiteness, complete vast whiteness. It was almost like the void, but it was white. And I don't know if I was standing. I don't know what I look like. I don't know anything about what I was, but I was there and he was to my right and he was with a woman with dark hair. And I sensed that they were about to leave. And I said, "Well, how do you two know each other?" And the woman looked at me and said playfully, "Oh, from here and from there." I was like, "Okay." And then in this dream, my son was next to me and I was patting my son on the arm, on the shoulder. And my ex-boyfriend said, "You're a good mom." And when I woke up, I thought that was a really strange dream. And I felt this, what and now I know is a presence. I felt this energy next to me. And later that night, as I was exiting the park, I got a message on my watch that said, from a mutual friend who said, "Hey, Karen, I don't know if you heard, but he passed last night." And as far as I knew, he was healthy, he was fine. And so then I learned that, that wasn't just a dream, that was an experience. And I've since learned that if you have an experience like that when someone's dying, it's called a shared death experience. And that was a remote shared death experience. And so I thought that was pretty interesting that that happened. And it was really, really comforting to know that he came and said goodbye. And it was very, what's the word? Uh, I don't know. It was very telling to me that he mentioned that I was a good mom because he never wanted kids. He had epilepsy and just didn't want children. And when I dated him, I didn't want kids at that time either. So he was acknowledging that. And that was really, I feel really cool to have that experience. But
Wow. When I first started
yeah.
talking to you today, I thought my sister booked you to be on the show because of your near-death experience. And now I realize it's because of the signs and synchronicities. I don't talk about this a whole lot on the show because the show is so focused on NDEs, but thank you for sharing all of those amazing synchronicities. I too have had many, many, many of those synchronicities. I want to share one that I had yesterday because not only can our loved ones communicate from the other side, but our pets can as well.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yesterday, I had to go and run an errand to Home Depot. My dog died a year ago. She was almost 16. She was my hiking partner. We hiked over 1,000 miles a year together, and so I was super, super close to her, and it was a big loss for me. And the next, I guess, May after she died in January, I got a puppy. Well, yesterday I was in Home Depot and my dog's name was Storm, and we had one song that was our song. And it's a song, an old song called Laughter in the Rain. I mean, this is a 1970s song. And there's one line that says, Under stormy skies. And when she was alive, I would sing that to her. And that song was presented to me many times after she died, but I haven't heard it for a while. But I was walking in Home Depot and I'm going down and I realized I missed the aisle that I needed to go to. And I turned around and I turned down that aisle. And that line from the song played overhead. And I was like, oh my gosh, Storm is reaching out to me and letting me know that she's still here. And it wasn't until after that happened that I realized that yesterday was the anniversary of the day that I told the breeder that I would take the dog that I have right now.
Oh, wow.
Didn't even know it until later.
That is so amazing
I
and
got a
special.
confirmation because I got the only reason I even remember, like when it happened, I just thought, oh, it's my dog Storm. I didn't realize the significance until I saw, you know how your phone will send me, this event happened, and they sent me the picture that
Yeah.
the breeder sent me on the day that I
Oh,
picked her, that I decided I put money down to get her.
oh,
So I love these synchronicities. The other one I would really love to share with everybody because you said that you knew that you were supposed to write your book. I had been recording the signs from my passed away loved one, and my passed away loved one was lead guitarist at the band Starship. So he communicated with me through music a lot. And so a lot of our synchronicities are music. And the reason I love that is because I would be standing like at the deli at the grocery store, and all of a sudden I wouldn't even know I'm under the speaker, and all of a sudden one of our songs that was, you know, we were connected to would play. So it happens all the time. But what was really cool is that at the 2 year anniversary of his death, I filled an entire notebook with all the signs that he had sent me in the 2 years since he died. And then in April, and we're recording this in April, I just looked it up. It's coming up on the 11th, and today's the 3rd. But on the 11th, the night of the 11th, or the 10th, whatever that was, the night before, I had this dream. And he came to me in the dream, and I walked up, and there were people with their back around standing like in front of a fire on a beach, like a little bonfire in the beach. And he turned around, and it was him. And I grabbed his hand, and we started walking up this mountain, like climbing up this mountain. And he stopped me and he looked me in the eyes and he said, I'm most proud of our story. And then I woke up from the dream. And that night, this book began to write itself. I never had an intention of writing a book. And I
wow.
wound up writing a book called Signs Surround You, Love Never Dies. And the first part was about our story. And the second part was about all of these signs I got for the first 2 years and while I was writing the book. And in the back of the book, I did a key about all of the different ways that spirit communicate with us. So I love that you said all
Mm.
these things. You know what I missed was the water part. I've never had anybody say that. But again, like these are consciousness expanding. And when the whole time, Karen, you were telling all of your stories, I was like, yes, this is me. Yes, this is me. So of course,
Ah,
my sister reached out because she knew how much we would have in common with what we've
oh,
experienced. And it's just so beautiful because for those who are listening, you're right. The more you see the signs, the more they will come to you, the more complex they will get. I mean, the depth of complexity of signs that I get that are just so beyond any kind of coincidence. Like, there are so many stories I could tell you. I'll tell you a quick one that I think is super funny. Through a
yeah.
medium, Mark told me that he would send me signs of beavers. He was kind of tongue in cheek joking around, but I lived in Illinois and I would see beavers at these ponds that I would walk around, but I wouldn't just see a beaver, like a beaver would come up when the words I love you were being played on the music I was listening to. And then I moved to
Wow.
Arizona and I said to my daughter on the drive to Arizona, "Oh great, now Mark's never going to be able to send me beavers anymore because now I'm living in Arizona." And the first day that we were here, we had to go to Home Depot. It was raining, and I had to return something. And I'm standing in line, and the woman in front of me had a sweatshirt on that had a beaver on it. And I feel like he was joking around, going, ha ha ha. Which, when you said that you asked for a sign about the song, and he didn't play that song, but he sent it to you on the Facebook message more than words. I was like, that's how that works for me sometimes also. So just because
Yeah.
you ask for a sign doesn't mean you're going to get it in the way that you expect it. You have to open your mind because they have so many different ways that they can creatively connect and communicate with us.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, like, yeah, I talk about how they can, yeah, you might not get a little literal beaver. You're gonna see it on a
Exactly.
billboard or
Yeah,
or a
I can't
shirt.
even count how many times I've had beaver license plates, beavers on the sides of cars. This was really crazy. Last summer, I was driving. I had a really long drive to do, and I passed a town that was called Beaver, Wisconsin. And as I passed it, one of Mark's songs began playing at the radio at the exact moment. And that's what I mean about these synchronistic ones. And I
Oh,
think you shared one about Brian that way too. It's sometimes not just the sign, it's the timing of how it comes together.
it's true. Yeah. I have found that most often it's like an anniversary date or a something significant, but not always. Like when you were bringing up the music and your boyfriend in the band, the boyfriend that I had the dream with, he was in a band too. He was the lead singer and guitarist of a local surf punk band.
I love it.
Yeah. And so one day this was maybe 6 years ago, I took my son to get his hair cut and he went back with the barber. So I'm in this barber shop and I'm just sitting there and it's not a significant day. It's just like a normal day. And I hear a song by Iggy Pop, which was his favorite, like his idol, his favorite singer. And I thought, oh, yeah, this totally makes me think of him. And and then I said to myself, I said, well, I don't want to jump to conclusions and say it's a sign just because every time I hear a song, I don't want to say it's a sign. I want to correlate it to like a significant day. But proved me wrong that day. The next barber came up to call out their next client and yelled that ex-boyfriend's name.
No way.
Yeah, so I
Oh my
hear I'm
gosh. I love a confirmation like that. So
I,
unexpected. And
yeah,
you cannot push it off as coincidence.
I know, and I mean, it was incredible. I'm sitting there, I hear Iggy Pop, and I think, boy, this sure reminds me of Troy. And I think, well, I don't want to jump to a conclusion, thinks that it's a sign, and then I hear Troy, and I'm like, okay, it's a sign. Okay, it's
Love it.
so cool.
That's
And
awesome.
I wanted to mention when you said you saw the woman with the
The
beaver
sweatshirt?
t-shirt, sweatshirt. I had a similar experience where one day I thought, okay, what's something else I can ask Brian for? Because I think it's important to ask your loved one for something related to them, like their birth year, and I thought, oh, well, Brian loved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I said, Brian, and I hadn't seen any of them since the accident. And I said, Brian, give me a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle as a sign. And that night I was getting ready for bed. I was brushing my teeth and I had the TV on the Netflix menu, but nothing was playing. I was intending to put something on when I got into bed. So nothing was playing. And I'm brushing my teeth and I hear Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles being repeated. And I looked over at the TV and it was a preview for this show that's all about toys, and each episode focuses on a specific toy and how they came to be. And that one was about Ninja Turtles. And
No way.
yeah, I was dying. And then the next day, I walked into my local bakery. There was a middle-aged woman right in front of me wearing a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle t-shirt.
Come
Yeah.
on.
They're like, you can't make that up.
You cannot make that up. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm curious for those of you who are watching, like what resonated with you the most? Was it Karen talking about the void? Was it about her out of body experience where she was love, or was it her connection with her brother with all these signs and synchronicities? And if you guys have signs and synchronicities you want to share, we would love to hear them. But
Oh, yeah.
and even if you've just gotten this far, if you just want to write collective or waking up the collective, then all those comments always help this channel. So, Karen, this has been amazing. And I would imagine that there are a lot of people who are watching who are like, where can I connect with you? Tell us about your book and tell us how people can work with you.
Yeah, they can go to my website. It's authorkarenmclean.com, and Karen is spelled with an I.
Spell the
And
whole thing out for those who are just listening.
sure, it's author Karen, Karin, McLean, McLean.com. And when they go to my website, they scroll all the way down to the bottom. There's icons for my social medias and an email where they can email me directly. So just click the email icon. And I also have a Substack where I share stories and things that I've written. And my book, my book's called Bright Days Do Come. And the cool thing that I love about it is that the title was inspired from a poem that I wrote while I was recovering in the rehab 1 month after the accident. And I wrote a poem called Emotional Weather. And I was just kind of thinking about, when you're in an accident like that and just life in general, things can change in a snap. And I was just thinking how strange life can be in that way. And I likened it to the weather. And so I titled the Emotional Weather, and it reads, Life is like the weather, it changes from day to day. Like the rain, many tears fall. Like the wind, things blow in and out of life. Like a storm, you don't know what to expect. Like the sun, bright days do come. And so when I eventually got encouraged to write my book, I just knew the title was Bright Days to Come. I never once thought, what's it going to be? I just knew. And so, in a way, the writing of my book started 1 month after the accident, even though I didn't technically start writing it for decades later. So
Wow, that's
it's been
incredible.
fun.
Well, I want to
Yeah,
ask you
thanks.
one last question. So, Karen, what do you feel now that you've had all these experiences and you've integrated this over a long period of time? What do you feel like you know for sure?
I know for sure that we never die, that we are just here in these bodies experiencing something that we can't experience in our real home, that we're just visiting. And I like to think of it as a boarding school, that we just went away, and that when people we love pass on, they're just returning home. And I like to remember too that, if we've lived for eons, there are so many more people we know and love that we don't remember, and that they are right beside us as well, and that we will all be together again. And just to remember that you're never, never alone. You always have people, people who love you. And, you know, I think one reason too why we forget where we came from is because, when we lose someone in this life right now, we grieve them, we miss them. Imagine leaving people you've known for eons and eons, multitudes of people, and suddenly knowing that you're not going to see them for your entire lifetime. We would be in instant grief the minute we were born. And so
Mm.
I like to remember that we have so many people that love us and that we love.
Sounds like we have an army on the other side working with us.
Yeah, I think we really do. I mean, imagine all the different possible lifetimes we might have, all the different experiences we've had, all the people we know. And, you think about all the people you meet and know in this lifetime. Just think all the people we meet, knew and loved from before.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Well, Karen, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for your vulnerability and sharing all of these experiences. But most of all, thank you so much for what you are doing to help wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
thank you so much for letting me be here. I'm so excited to share, and it really is my mission. It's my mission to wake people up and let them know, remind them how short life is, how precious it is, and to just savor every moment, because you never know when it's your last. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I can feel that from you completely. And of course, this show is absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch, to listen, and to share these beautiful experiences with somebody who needs it. And if you still have questions, you can join me for Wake Up Wednesdays live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thank you.
Do you believe that love never dies and you want to hear stories that prove it? Well, hit the subscribe button. You belong here.